A very good morning, children. This is an introduction to the chapter Microorganism, Friend and Foe. Today I'm going to introduce the chapter in which I'm going to give you an overview of the chapter as to what we are going to study in this chapter. In this chapter, we are going to study about microorganisms. Microorganisms are those organisms which we cannot see with eyes alone. So we need a microscope. A microscope, it can be in the form of simple, compound, or an electron microscope. Simple, compound, and electron microscope. Electron microscope is the most powerful microscope. Then we come to the classification of a microorganism, which is basically 4 types, but viruses are also a type of microorganism. Microorganisms are so minute that you cannot see with the naked eyes, so you always need some kind of microscope with it. Bacteria are a very common type of microorganism, and they are omnipresent. They are present everywhere, and they are cause for most of the diseases, most of the common diseases. And common diseases is typhoid and tuberculosis, which is commonly known as TB. Then there are fungi. The 2 examples are yeast and molds. We basically find yeast and molds especially in our breads, bread mold. If you keep your moist bread for a long period of time, you will get the green color layer on top of your breads. Then there is protozoa. Protozoa is also a type of microorganism. Most common, it causes dysentery or malaria. Malaria, which is caused by mosquitoes. Mosquitoes they bear this protozoa, which leads to your to malaria. Then is algae. Algae are greenish in color microorganisms, which we can see easily in your on your ponds during rainy season, and they are also a type of microorganism. Then comes viruses, which are very commonly now a cause of problem in our world, which are microscopic. And one of the most important points are that they reproduce only inside the cell of host organism. Host should be living. This is one criteria for your viruses to live. They only reproduce in living organisms. The most common disease which they cause are cold, flu, polio, and most common now is corona, which is also a type of it shows you symptoms like flu, but it has very severe consequences. Next, we come to this topic as to where microorganisms live. Microorganisms are omnipresent. Omnipresent means they are present everywhere, on every surface, inside human body, on human skin also. Amoeba is a type which you find it is type of microorganism. It's a unicellular microorganism, which if you find, they are only found alone. Whereas bacteria and fungi, if you find, they are found on colonies, and fungi and bacteria, you can easily find them on skin. They are responsible for your skin infections and skin diseases. Next is your microorganisms, as the chapter was named as friend and foe. So microorganisms can behave as our friends also, like it help in the preparation of curd, bread, cakes, and has a soil fertility. Example is rhizobium. Then commercial uses can be in your industries. A lot of microorganisms, they help. Then in case of medicinal use, they help in the production of antibiotics. These are what we are going to study about the important or positive points about microorganism. Next is vaccine, pulse polio vaccines and all kinds of vaccines, which helps in your protection of a body and developing immune system. Cleaning environment, also many microorganisms help. We will study this in the chapter. Now microorganisms as foe means they act as our enemy. That is, they are disease causing and they cause communicable diseases. Right now the world is fighting one such communicable disease. And then the microorganisms cause disease both in plants and animals. Lastly, we are going to study in this chapter about food poisoning. Microorganism cause a lot of poisoning of a food, stale, they cause stale, the foods become stale. And so there is one more process to overcome food poisoning is food preservation. Food preservation, there are various ways. There is the salting, there is boiling, and there are many other types of food preservation, which we food preservation techniques that we are going to study in this chapter. Lastly, we'll study about nitrogen fixation. Nitrogen fixation is as we know, nitrogen is free in the air, but the plants need nitrogen, so it is done by specific bacteria. Bacteria do this nitrogen fixation. So we are going to study about the whole cycle of how the atmospheric nitrogen, how does it come to the soil, and how it is readily absorbed by the plants. This is the overview of the whole chapter, where we are going to study about the types and where do they live and what diseases do they do, and what are the functions what are the functions the microorganism do as a friend, and what are the things that the microorganism behave as an enemy to the humankind. Thank you so much, children. This is the overview of the chapter. You will get the notes for the chapter in the coming days.